Welcome to our channel, the most terrifying place on YouTube. Tonight we plunge into the abyss of fear, into the heart of darkness, where terror echoes. We bring you 3 spine-chilling stories, each a chilling whisper from deserted shipyards, places where steel carcasses hold secrets darker than the deepest ocean trenches. Turn off the lights, put on your headphones and step into the darkness with me. Prepare to be terrified. The rusty gate creaked as Thomas, the new night guard, stepped into the abandoned shipyard. The air hung heavy, thick with the smell of salt and decay. Towering cranes loomed against the moonless sky, their skeletal arms casting long, eerie shadows. Thomas, a man hardened by years of solitude, felt a chill he couldn't explain. He started his rounds, his heavy boots echoing on the deserted concrete. Each clang of metal, each rustle of wind sent his pulse racing. As he rounded the corner of a massive rust-covered warehouse, the first noise hit him. It was a low groan, deep and resonant like some colossal beast stirring in its sleep. He froze, his heart pounding against his ribs, every instinct screaming at him to run. But curiosity rooted him to the spot. He shone his flashlight into the darkness of the warehouse, the beams swallowed by the abyss. Dust motes danced in the weak light, but there was nothing to explain the sound. He told himself it was just the wind playing tricks on him, but deep down a primal fear whispered a different story. The rest of his shift passed in a blur of paranoia and adrenaline. Every creak, every groan sent his heart racing. He couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, hunted by something unseen in the darkness. The next night the noises returned, louder this time, more insistent. A cacophony of groans, clangs and scrapes echoed through the shipyard, seeming to come from every direction at once. Thomas, his nerves frayed, tried to rationalize the sounds, but his mind conjured up images of unseen creatures lurking in the shadows, their eyes glowing with malevolent intent. The old abandoned shipyard was notorious in Ashton, a town steeped in maritime history and haunted by whispers of the past. It was a place of legend, a dare whispered amongst teenagers, a place where, it was said, the silence held echoes of long-forgotten tragedies. One hot summer night, 4 friends, fueled by youthful bravado and cheap beer, decided to confront the legend of the shipyard. There was Mark, the self-proclaimed leader, always pushing the boundaries. Emily, the skeptic, trying to mask her fear with cynicism. Chris, the quiet one, who observed more than he spoke. And Jessica, the adventurous one, always eager for a thrill. Armed with flashlights and a shaky sense of courage, they climbed the rusty fence and entered the forbidden grounds. The air hung heavy, thick with the smell of salt and decay, the silence broken only by the distant crashing of waves. The hulking silhouettes of unfinished ships loomed around them, skeletal and imposing like slumbering giants. As they ventured deeper into the heart of the shipyard, the playful banter died down, replaced by an uneasy silence. Even Mark, usually the bravest of the group, seemed subdued, his earlier bravado replaced by a nervous tension. The first strange sound reached them as they passed a towering crane, its long arm casting an eerie shadow across their path. It was a metallic groan, low and drawn out, followed by a series of rhythmic clangs, like chains being dragged across metal. Emily, her voice trembling slightly, tried to laugh it off, attributing the sounds to the wind or stray animals, but her words lacked conviction, and the others exchanged uneasy glances. They pressed on, their pace quickening, the air growing thicker with each step, as if the very atmosphere were closing in on them. They reached a clearing where several small boats lay rotting, their hulls covered in graffiti. As they stopped to catch their breath, the noises returned, louder this time, closer. It was a cacophony of sounds now, metallic screeches, grinding gears, the unmistakable clang of hammers on metal, all interwoven with an undercurrent of deep guttural groans that seemed to vibrate in their chests. Panic began to creep into their eyes, their earlier bravado evaporating like mist in the face of the unknown. Mark, his voice strained, tried to maintain control, suggesting they stick together and find their way out. But his words were drowned out by a new sound, a chilling, mournful wail that seemed to come from the depths of the shipyard. It was a sound filled with such raw, primal fear that it froze them to the spot, their blood turning to ice in their veins. They spun around, their flashlights dancing wildly in the darkness, searching for the source of the terrifying sound. But the darkness held its secrets close, and the shadows seemed to twist and writhe, playing tricks on their eyes. Chapter 3. The Sailor's Haunting. Old Man Finnegan was a fixture at the Salty Dog Tavern, a weathered mariner with eyes that held the secrets of the sea. He spoke little, but when he did, his words carried the weight of experience, of long nights spent battling storms and confronting the vast indifference of the ocean. He was a man who had stared into the abyss and emerged, forever changed by what he had seen. One stormy night, as the wind howled outside and the tavern's windows rattled in their frames, Finnegan, his voice barely a whisper over the storm, began to tell his tale. It was a story that had haunted him for years, a story that had etched lines of fear and regret into his weathered face. It began on a foggy night, much like this one, he said, his voice raspy but steady. He was a young man then, full of dreams and the arrogance of youth. He had signed on as a deckhand on a freighter, the Albatross, bound for ports unknown. The ship, he recalled, was old but sturdy, with a crew as rough and seasoned as the barnacles that clung to her hull. They were several days out, he continued, his gaze distant, lost in the memories of that fateful voyage. The fog had rolled in thick and heavy, shrouding the ship in an eerie silence. It was during his watch in the dead of night that he first heard it, a low, mournful groan, like the cry of some wounded beast emanating from the depths of the ship. He dismissed it at first, attributing it to the creaking of the old vessel or the tricks the fog played on the mind. But the sound persisted, growing louder with each passing hour, a constant, unsettling presence that gnawed at his sanity. It seemed to seep from the very walls of the ship, a chilling symphony of groans, creaks, and whispers that sent shivers down his spine. He reported the strange noises to the captain, a grizzled old salt with a face like tanned leather. But the captain, dismissive, attributed them to the ramblings of a young man's imagination, fueled by too much time at sea and the unsettling effects of the fog. But Finnegan knew deep in his gut that something was amiss. The sounds were too real, too insistent, to be dismissed as mere figments of his imagination. As the days turned into nights, the noises intensified, spreading throughout the ship like a contagion. The crew, their initial skepticism replaced by growing unease, whispered amongst themselves, their faces etched with worry. The once familiar sounds of the ship, the rhythmic thrumming of the engine, the creaking of the hull, now seemed amplified, distorted, as if the very vessel itself were crying out in pain. One night during his watch, Finnegan witnessed something that chilled him to the bone. As he made his rounds, he noticed a strange glow emanating from the hold. Cautiously he approached, his heart pounding in his chest. Peering through a crack in the hatch, he saw something that made his blood run cold. The hold, usually a dimly lit space filled with cargo, was bathed in an eerie phosphorescent light. And in the center of it all, surrounded by crates and barrels, stood a figure. It was tall and gaunt, its skin stretched taut over its bones, its eyes glowing with an unnatural light. The shipyard stands silent tonight, but the echoes of terror linger. Did those noises come from the groaning of old metal or something far more sinister? You decide. If you enjoyed these terrifying tales, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more spine-chilling stories. But be warned, once you step into the shadows with me, there's no turning back. Share your own scary experiences in the comments below. Until next time, stay safe and stay scared.